Good afternoon, investigators. Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy here with episode 147 of Investigations Uni, the continuous professional development support program for people studying at the Australian Security Academy. Today we are looking at compulsory third-party liability motor vehicle accident dependency claims. How it comes to that, I'll come to in a minute, but the preliminaries are, if you're here for the first time, this is the support program where you can interact live with your instructors, get in-depth investigation information, and refresh your skills in investigation through the 147 episodes available to you in this program every Friday over the last 5 years. Next year, in 2025, we're coming up to 25 years of the Australian Security Academy. We're very pleased with that, and we'll be upping the ante in relation to what you're watching now, and it will grow exponentially as our anniversary grows over the next year. So looking forward to that. If you say hello in the chat, g'day. Hey, along, great to see you, mate. Hope things are good down in Canberra. G'day, Davey. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for checking in. Always nice to have you saying hello, so I know I'm not talking to myself. So today we are looking at continuous professional development, in particular CTP liability and motor vehicle accident. You might say, what's that got to do with me? I do workers' compensation, or I am a government investigator. The skills in what we're about to present today will carry across when you are doing regulatory compliance enforcement in relation to a government investigator checking that the dependency money in this session today went to the right people. Because if there's a complaint to the Ombudsman, you, the government investigator, will be looking at what went wrong, what training, information, gap, credibility, excuse me, trading information gap went wrong in relation to the award of that money. And you'll see how that could actually go wrong today, which will be of special interest, I'm sure, to everybody. G'day, Emily. Great to see you. G'day, Greg. Thanks for saying hello, mate. That's Canberra, buddy. Get used to it. You'll enjoy it. Great. That's why it's a wool growing area. It's going to be nice and cold most of the year, but when it's hot, by my word, it's hot. So this program comes to you every week so you can refresh your skills if you're a past Academy graduate, or if you're a current Academy graduate and you're going to be doing TAC investigations in Victoria, Green Slip investigations in New South Wales, MAIB investigations in Tasmania, MAIC investigations in Queensland. This affects you. And we do this because every week we come here to be consistently bringing you investigation advanced training. If you go to a conference, that's the wave on the right-hand side. That's intense. What we are about here is consistent. So you don't get 4 days of intensity. You get every week, 1 day, 1 hour of consistent investigation CPD. G'day, Mike. Great to see you, mate. Thanks for saying g'day. Okay, so I've got to get into it, otherwise I'll be talking to myself all day. So let's have a look. Today we are looking basically at CTP liability, compulsory third party. Now, people often get confused what it's all about. They think, oh, well, I've got CTP insurance, that'll cover me for motor vehicle accident damage in a motor vehicle accident. No, it won't. This is how it works. These are where you are covered by CTP, compulsory third-party insurance, and we all have it. We have to have it before we drive that car out of the showroom. If you cause an accident and a person is injured or dies, you have CTP liability insurance. It protects you. You don't have to sell your house to pay their heirs and dependents for the lost income that that person had who was injured or died. If you're involved in a car accident while driving, whether partially or wholly your fault, your CTP policy covers the compensation costs for the person if they're injured or die. Compensation costs involve rehabilitation, treatment, payments to support income, or funeral expenses. How much in funeral expenses? Basically all around Australia, it's pretty well capped at $20,000. So if you were planning on having a very expensive funeral and you do have the misfortune to be killed in a motor vehicle accident, they're going to cap what they will pay for your funeral to around about $20,000. That's universal all around Australia. If someone else causes an accident on the road and you're injured, or if you die, you or your next of kin can claim compensation from the compulsory third-party insurer that covers the person who caused the accident, known as the at-fault driver. So that's CTP liability insurance in a nutshell. Hi, Judith. Hope things are well in northern New South Wales. G'day, Nina. Hope things are going well down in beautiful Sydney. Thanks for saying hello, everybody. We're looking at dependency investigations today. So in relation to dependency, when someone dies in a motor vehicle accident, the definition is, in this policy, the surviving partner of a person who dies as a result of a transport accident means someone who, irrespective of their gender or marital status, was a dependent partner of the deceased. That person has the right to claim a lump sum in Victoria of up to $229,000 in death benefits for them because they were dependent on the person who died in that accident in Victoria. Now, it varies from state to state. You'll have to look up your own state and your own state's CTP insurer to find out how much it is, but that's what it currently is in Victoria. As a rule of thumb, it basically doubles every decade. All right, so that's how it works. That's just as a rough, very rough rule of thumb, okay? G'day, Georgia. Great to see you. Thanks for saying hello. Payouts with 11% or more WPI. WPI, okay, what does that mean? Whole person impairment in relation to insurance injuries. That could relate to motor vehicle accident or workers' compensation. So if you have a permanent physical or psychological assessed 11% or more whole person impairment, you can claim an additional impairment benefit on top of your weekly benefits. This is a lump sum amount that ranges from $9,000 to $411,470, depending on the severity of your injuries. So the average TAC payout for these claims is basically, where is it? I've got that there somewhere. I've lost my place. Some examples of injury that typically fall into that category: brain injury, a fused joint, a spinal cord injury, restricted shoulder movement, psychological condition that's permanent. That's as of June 2024. Serious claim injury payouts in Victoria can be up to 2.25 million. How do they calculate that? Well, if you live, right, and you've got to go into 24-hour care, right, it's going to be very expensive. And so they are going to pay through the CTP liability insurer up to that amount for your ongoing care, which if you're 60 or 70, okay, it's not going to be a lot of money. But if you are a young person, 3 or 5, it could be that amount or more over a period of time. So CTP liability is a great protection. In order to establish the partner's eligibility for benefits, the TAC may require the completion of a dependent statutory declaration and evidence that the domestic relationship between the two people exists. So they have marriage certificates, certificates in a relationship is registered. So whatever they may have to prove. And this is all when it's just pure and simple. It's a husband and wife, or a husband and wife, whatever it is, okay, they're married. That's really easy. So they calculate it based on who was in that legal relationship. Statements, statutory declarations by parents, family members, relatives, and friends can help. So it could be a very young couple. The person that died might have had a really great job in IT that paid a lot of money, okay, and his partner, who he was married to legally, she was home looking after their 3 children under 5 and she wasn't working, okay, so she has to be the person that's going to receive that money. If The jealous in-laws try and step in and claim all that money and that they're looking after the kid. This is where problems come into it. The money has to go to the right person. All right, so there's a whole list of rules there, and I'll go through that. What happens if someone's facing getting almost $230,000 in a dependency payout? They're going to come out of the woodwork and come from everywhere. They're going to be saying, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. It's me, 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 because we're the grandparents that, are left with the kid. There's no other partner. Okay, he left, we don't know where he is. All right, he's gone. He left 6 years ago. We've been looking after the kids, going to their parties every year, and now we've got custody of their kids since the accident 8 months ago, and we're going to ensure they have the right education and the right upbringing. They're the people that this is designed for, who have the children's interests in mind. But what if it's the grandparents that shoot up every night, or the grandparents that put all their money and their pension through the pokies? And they just want those kids, the 3 kids that are left from that relationship, as their pay packet for the next few years. They haven't got the welfare of the children in mind. They want to say, look, mum's a waster. We want the kids, right? So we can have that money. And there's going to be an argument about it. And the TAC has to do an investigation and make the right decision. Now, the partner, they want to know things like, what was the partner's involvement with the children and their upbringing? This is the one claiming custody of the children and the dependency payout. Was she doing things with them? So, whoops. Was the dad, okay? He's claiming that since mum died in the accident and he was dependent on her because she had a great job in human resources and he was staying home and looking after the kids, was he actually involved with the raising of the children? What did he do? Did he go to the concerts at the school, and was he supportive of his daughter and his other kids? That's what they want to know. Were they great parents? Or is the person claiming the money sitting in a heroin clinic every week? Is that person on parole and having to meet up with the parole officer every week? Did the person go to the children's parents and teachers' days and discuss the children's welfare? All these things came into it. Were they a waste? Did they walk past the birthday card news agency every birthday of those children and go into a brothel? Or were they great partners and great parents? You want the kids to be looked after by the right person, and that money's got to go to them and their welfare and their upbringing. That's what happens. So it gets complicated when there's no marriage certificate. There's no formal relationship. They have to send you out with a lot of instructions to find out what kind of partner which partner deserves that money and which partner has the kids' interests at heart and is not going to waste it. So you'll be going out and you'll be taking statements from witnesses and friends who say, look, we've known them. They've been in a relationship for 9 years. He had 2 kids when they started. She had 2 kids when they started, and they've now got another 2. And we've watched them grow. And yes, they'd never had any other partners. And he's left with 6 kids now, and you might take statements from next door neighbours, from other relatives, and they will tell you this sort of thing. That's what you're going to be instructed to do. Now, if the partner that died had multiple relationships, it gets even messier. This guy was on a road in a registered vehicle in Queensland, and he decided he was going to cross that road, which part of that crossing means you had to cross a river. Now, in Queensland, a causeway crossing is really common, really, really common. It's unthinkable in a lot of other states, but in Queensland they do it. So he started going across the river and everything was going great until he got washed away and he drowned. It came to his funeral. So we haven't even got the dependency claim in yet. At the funeral, they put up a photo of him, and basically talked about him. There's some children at the funeral and they were playing around and whatever. And the mums at the wake were all talking to each other, having, a cup of tea and a cake or half a champagne or a glass of wine, whatever. And they said to each other, Jesus, your kids look like my kids. That's a bit strange. And they started watching the kids playing at this funeral wake. And they realised that all these kids had certain characteristics and features that were exactly the same and all came from the same dad. This was news to every one of the mums that their children had the same father. Total news to them. None of them were married. They all had a fly-in, fly-out boyfriend, and they all had children to the same dad. This is a very complex situation because each one of those people would have been dependent on him in some way. So they're going to put in claims for dependency in relation to that. If they knew about it, that would be different, but they didn't know about it. No one knew about it until they got together for the first time in their lives at a funeral for the person who died. Okay, I'll go through the presentation. This presentation, number 147, should be watched in conjunction with the Australian Security Academy Investigations Uni, episode 45, I think it is, TAC Investigations with Ivan Lundai. In that presentation, he explains the types of TAC investigation, this fast-track progress dependency, prospective employment inquiries, police interviews, circumstance investigations, and surveillance. All that is explained in that presentation. Also about licensing conditions for investigators conducting TAC investigations is in that Investigations Uni program as well. If you don't have access to it, write to me and I'll send you access to it. It gives you an idea of what you're going to be investigating as an investigator licensed in Victoria with TAC. Very similar to New South Wales Green Slip, Queensland MAIC, Tasmania MAIB, etc., etc. Okay, so different states all have their own way of doing it. In that same presentation, Pat Flynn goes through other parts of what's relevant in CTP investigations. It's quite a long presentation, but you must watch those two in conjunction with what you're watching today to really get the perspective right. So with dependency investigations, there's evidence of a genuine domestic relationship between the two people. It must exist. There are people that are killed in motor vehicle accidents that have no dependents. So nobody gets any money. They don't have any dependents at all for whatever life reason. Okay, so no one can come forward and say, I was dependent on that person, I want $230,000 in Victoria, because it just can't happen. The person who died must have dependents and they must make a claim for dependency. Now, TAC have got that all set up. It's been there forever and a day, ever since they've had CTP insurance in Victoria. And you can see the history in past presentations. But basically, it's there to protect those dependents. The issue is $239,000 has to go to the deceased dependents. Multiple parties will come forward who want to claim the money. Like I said, there'll be in-laws, grandparents, other grandparents, other in-laws, the first husband, the second boyfriend. If there's a lot of money and it can support a drug habit or a gambling habit or whatever addiction the person's got, and they've got to sniff at it, they'll make a claim for it. The TAC have to send you out, the investigator, to find out who is the actual dependent, what the witnesses say, and what documentation supports it. Because people have relationships that they do not formalise through marriage, and fair enough, do they have to? People have accidents and die in accidents, and they were going to make a will in 5 years' time when they got round to it, but they've been too busy with a very successful job to ever make that will. And this is what leads to dependency investigations, because if the will was there in the first place, right, and undisputable, you wouldn't get this investigation because it'd be obvious who it was supposed to go to in that document. But not everyone has that luxury or the timing to be able to do that. And more people don't have that luxury or the timing to be able to do that, because who thinks that they're going to have a fatal accident next week? Nobody does. Right? So this is what you're looking at. There might be formal documentation, a marriage certificate, or a certificate demonstrating the relationship is registered for whatever reason. Now, that might be Centrelink, might have a registration of that for some reason. I don't know why, but it's a formal document saying that it exists. No problem being late down in Melbourne. That's just fine. G'day, George. Great to see you, mate. Thank you. There are informal ways that they go about it. They were living together on a permanent basis. They share the household, domestic duties, running the kids to school, running the kids to sport, responsible for the home's expenses and each other's necessities of life. But they never actually got married. It's only 2 years into the relationship, but they've got 3 kids. 1 from a former relationship and 2 during this relationship. Who knows? TAC don't know until they go out, send you out to interview the claimant, and that claimant goes through what they did with you, and you take a statement from them. The witness statements, other people believe that they are in a genuine marriage. The next door neighbours, the brother-in-law, the sister-in-law, the cousin, the best friend. They can tell you that they're living together and they have a sexual relationship. Now, you might think, well, I don't want to go there, but this is part of your role. Your instructions could be so clear, dot pointed, that they say to you, you must ask from the witnesses who the deceased was sleeping with, how often the deceased slept with each person, and what were the prospects of a long-term relationship between the deceased and each person as a result. Now, that's a pretty hard thing to ask the parents of a deceased male, let alone the parents of a deceased female who only died 3 months ago. But time's coming where they've got to make a decision on paying that money to those dependents. It gets very messy, as I said, when there's a former partner and a child, or 3 former partners and 2 children. Who was the dad of which child? Can that dad now take the responsibility for both children? Or should the grandparents, who have custody of the children since the deceased died and have looked after them, schooled them and fed them and clothed them, should they retain custody of their children and manage the dependency claim? So that's where it gets messy. And you're going to be asking that of witnesses. It's a very difficult thing to ask. Now, some witnesses will be all offended and, oh, no, I can't tell you. But there are others that will be matter-of-factly. They will say to you, well, yeah, over a cup of coffee, we discussed it. And, she said this is what was great about him. And this was what, was nice about him and blah, blah, blah. And every night for the first 6 weeks was like a honeymoon or whatever. Then you're going to get an indication from those people what the people who have to make a decision at the TAC or the lawyers or claims managers want to know about who that money should go to. So very difficult questions. Be prepared for them. With any kind of dependency investigation, if I could give you one tip, take a box of tissues with you to every statement you take from every witness, because they are going to be upset. That person died in unfortunate circumstances. They're talking about a friend they know, and the tears are going to flow. You don't take that on board. Your role is to be there, get answers to those questions. Don't rush them. Let them take their time. Explain to them that if they're answering honestly, they're helping those children, get the dependency claim that they deserve to the right person. There's got to be evidence of economic support between the two people. For example, joint ownership of significant property. It won't always happen. Might be a car or a house. Okay, a car today could be $100,000. That's significant property. They might have been furniture restorers or something and have antique furniture. Who knows? Okay, that could be significant property. They have joint bank accounts or other financial investments. Someone bought a bit of Bitcoin early, chucked it in a drawer and forgot about it. Joint liabilities, credit cards, mortgage, loan, lease, rental agreements, other bills. This is going to be evidence between the two parties involved, the deceased and the dependent, that it actually existed. Wills, insurance policies, superannuation, remaining each other as the primary beneficiary. Any documentation confirming the deceased made regular child support payments before the death, either voluntarily or as required by a court, child support agency, etc. You're looking for everything you can get, and trust me, the instructions will be very detailed and they will be asking for clarity on a whole lot of things, and you have to ask and get that into a narrative statement. This is not a record of interview when you do these. You're getting a narrative statement of a witness who's familiar with the deceased and the dependent. Who's eligible for lump sum benefits? To be eligible for it, the surviving partner must be wholly or mainly in part dependent on the deceased, be wholly dependent on the deceased for the care of the children of a person who dies as a result of a transport accident, a child of the deceased born from the relationship or another, an adopted child of the deceased, a stepchild of the deceased. People look after their children and don't put them into care when the children have disabilities, okay? And they could, that carer, right, that parent could die when the child is 3 in a car accident. The TAC is going to cover the support for that child moving forward as a result of that accident. It's pretty good. It's quite a good system. Who is an earner? You've got to be at least 15 years of age, exempt from attending school, be a full-time employment or employed as a self-employed person at any time during 8 weeks immediate before the accident, or during a period or periods equal to 13 weeks during the year immediately before the accident, during a period equal to 26 weeks during the 2 years immediately before the accident, and at the date of the accident had not retired permanently from all employment, or received New Start, Job Search, sickness allowance, whatever, to 26 weeks. So the person who died in the accident, the deceased, earned money. That's how they calculate how much of the $230,000 or whatever it is that the TAC has put aside for these things the dependent will get. It won't always be the maximum. It won't always be the maximum because the person didn't earn that amount of money. So this is how they have their indexation of benefits. You can have a lump sum up to $229,980. That will come out common law. Funeral expenses, $19,220. Like I say, if you were going to plan an elaborate funeral, the TAC is not going to plan it for you. You've got to save up yourself for that and put aside, maybe get funeral insurance. I don't know. Education allowance of $3,669 for the children. Family counselling, traumatic time. Mum by herself is left with 5 dependent kids under 12, or dad, or grandparents, or whatever, and there's no other partner now because the partner is deceased. They're going to need some counselling and some help. Travel expenses, they're going to give you $6,450 to travel to counselling. First dependents, weekly for 5 years, they pay $238, November 2000 and November 2025, okay. Second dependents, 5 years, $77 each. Surviving child weekly, $238. That's just an indication of what can be expected. So all in all, dependency investigations are about you, the investigator, going out and speaking to the various people who have put in the claim. Your job is to get a clear picture. Were they involved in the welfare of those little children? Have they got the best interests of those little children at heart? Or are they just going to put it in through the poker machines? Or are they going to be at the heroin injecting clinic all week? Or were they a decent person involved in the child's growth and welfare who deserves to get that dependency support? That is your role. You will go and conduct interviews. You will have specific instructions on what to ask, and you do not leave any question unanswered. If the person refuses to answer a question, ask them why. They might say, I don't know. Okay, well, I can't answer that because I just do not know. Well, they don't have to know. You must have a reason why they don't know. I don't know. I wasn't involved. No one ever told me. I wasn't living with them. Right? If they do know, get the information that's in your instructions into that statement. As I said, arm yourself with all these investigations with at least one box of tissues. You are going to need it. I first started doing these in 1995. Some of the children involved back then would now be what, 5, 20, almost 30. And they would have been well looked after by the CTP dependency insurance system. So it has its benefits because they do ensure it goes to the right people. The danger is because big amount of money is involved. People are going to come forward and claim that they looked after the children. They have the children's welfare at hand, and they don't. Thanks for watching, people. That was episode 147 of Investigations Uni, our weekly CPD program for investigators and graduates and students of the Australian Security Academy. I'll see you over in Spy Curious. Thanks for watching. That's right. They're not trying to approve or challenge the claim. They're only looking at who the money should go to in these matters. There's no suggestion of fraud. They're preventing that from happening through the veracity of the investigation, through checking and verifying with witnesses how that goes. Yeah, it can be very tough, in my words. Yeah, it's very complex. It's highly emotional. Everybody claims to have the children's best interests at heart, but it's like I say, they're presenting you with a big bunch of flowers. Yeah, I'm a wonderful person. I'm going to look after the kids. Your job as the investigator is to look behind the flowers and check for the facts of who's got the kids' best interests at heart.